Hi folks, and welcome back to the Shack. This is Joe N2DI with a video that I wish existed when I started hunting POTA with CW. This video is going to be geared towards the relatively new CW op that wants a low pressure way of honing their CW skills. In this video I'll demonstrate how to get started, what to do, what to expect, and so on. Hunting POTA is a fantastic way to sharpen your CW skills. It's a great way to test out radios, antennas, CW keys, all kinds of things in a real-world situation, right? A real-world QSO that's low pressure. I absolutely love to hunt POTA stations, and I've been doing it for a few years now, and it's a ton of fun. And I'm pretty sure I don't have to convince you that it's something that you want to do because you're obviously here. So with that, let's get started. Okay, first you're going to want to set up an account with the Parks on the Air website. I'll add a link in the description below. It's not absolutely necessary, but if you want to keep track of your stats and get awards and things like that, that's what you're going to have to do. Of course, you can log your contacts with Logbook of the World or QRZ or wherever you log them normally. But if you want to get any sort of Parks on the Air award specifically, you're going to need to have an account there. And that's all tracked for you automatically. You don't really need to do anything. As you make contacts with the activators, they'll upload their logs. You won't actually have to upload your side of the QSO. And you'll automatically start getting awards as you start to rack up contacts. So it's pretty awesome. So I recommend doing it. All right, once you have the account set up, you're going to want to get your station ready and check the Pota.app's spots page. Again, I'll add that link in the description below. The POTA activators will spot themselves at this page, so it's basically going to become your fishing hole, okay? Also, before I get started too, I want to just clarify a couple of terms that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the terms activator and hunter. Okay, so the activator is the person that goes to the park, gets sunburned, questioned by park rangers, bitten by insects, and calls CQ and tries to activate the park. So they have the hard part. You, on the other hand, you're the hunter, right? You get to sit in your air-conditioned shack with your feet up. You have the easier job. So you're the hunter, and they're the activator. Before I get into the mechanics of how POTA QSO works, I'm going to list the abbreviations that are used in a POTA QSO. And you should learn these by sound, right? You want to recognize these by sound. That's going to be key to understanding what's happening in the QSO. POTA QSOs are short, and they usually follow the same format. So it becomes pretty easy to pick up, what's going on after you make a few QSOs or after listening to a few QSOs. Some activators may vary things a bit, but generally they're all the same, okay? And in CW, abbreviations are used all over the place, especially in POTA, because, sending out full words takes a long time, and these contacts are usually quick. They're usually under a minute. So any shortcut that can be taken is taken. Okay, so I have my QRP Labs QMX here set up in practice mode, which means that you'll be able to hear my side tone, but I won't be actually transmitting. I've also turned on the CW decoders so you can see exactly what I'm sending. Okay, what you should learn to recognize by sound are the components of the POTA QSO. You should be able to send them and recognize them instantly. First off, you're going to want to be able to send and recognize your call sign, obviously. Without that, you're not going to get very far. But beyond that, you're going to want to be able to recognize things like CQ POTA, okay? And that's what it sounds like. And if you look up over here, you should be able to see the decoded text, okay? You're going to want to recognize CQ POTA because there might be folks out there calling CQ to make other types of contacts, right? So you're looking specifically for POTA contact. You're going to want to listen for CQ POTA. Okay, next you're going to want to be able to recognize DE. DE means from or this is. Okay, and then following that is usually the activator's call sign. So you're going to want to recognize CQ POTA, DE, and then there's a couple of other components, actually quite a few components that you're going to want to be able to recognize as soon as you hear them. One of them is ES. That's used as AND in Morse Code, AND. It's a lot quicker than keying out AND. So if you hear, that means AND, okay? Also very important, BK. Recognize that sound. You're going to hear that a lot. BK means break. It's usually used, well, Originally, it was used to turn over a QSO quickly to the other person if you wanted to ask like a clarifying question or something. It was meant for a quick back and forth. In POTA, it's used meaning that I'm basically done with what I'm saying and I'm turning it over to you now. Okay, so be able to recognize that because you're going to hear it all the time. Next, you're going to want to be able to recognize the question mark because that's constantly used. It's used when either an activator or a hunter can't make out what the other person's sending, so they'll send a question mark. That's what it sounds like. Da-da-da-da did it. Okay? And sometimes that will follow some other words when a question is being asked, like again. Again in Morse code is just the letters A, G, and N. And then it's often followed by the question mark, so it'll sound like this. That means that whoever you were talking to didn't get what you were just sending. They weren't able to make it out for some reason, and they want you to send it again. Okay? You're also going to want to know GM, GA, and GE. Those three are good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Normally, hunters and activators will greet each other with good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time of day. And that sounds like this. That's good morning. Good afternoon is... Okay, and good evening. Okay. Also, you're going to want to learn the letters U and R together. Okay. That stands for U, Y-O-U, R-A-R-E. And it's what comes just before they send your signal report. So you're going to hear, and then usually your signal report right after that. Okay. So that should be like your brain's cue to listen up to what's coming next, because that's going to be your signal report. Okay. Obviously, you're going to have to learn your numbers 0 through 9 for the signal reports and to send 73 and things like that. So you have to know all of your numbers. Some other things that you're going to hear are TU for thank you. You hear it a lot. Or TNX for thanks. Okay. Those are obviously used to thank somebody, usually for the contact or whatever. I'll go into more like how and when those things are used. You're also going to need to learn the Q codes. Now, there's a lot of Q codes out there, but there's probably, I don't know, about 5 or 6 that you really need to know by sound. One of them is QRL, and it's usually followed by a question mark, and that's when a person is asking if a frequency is in use. It sounds like this. Okay. You'll hear that when somebody's checking to see if a frequency is clear, and they're gonna want to start calling CQ. Another one that you're going to want to know is QRT. QRT is used when the activator is going to basically shut his radio off and go home because his battery's dying or his time is up and he's got to do something or whatever. But that's just the signal to all the hunters that, hey, I'm done. I have to wrap up. Okay, and it sounds like this. Okay, so be able to recognize that by sound. Because if you're sitting there waiting to make a contact with an activator and you hear him start calling QRT, he's going to be shutting down. So either try to squeeze in your contact or give up and go find somebody else. Okay? Next, you're going to want to know QRZ. QRZ is used a fair amount of times when a activator is calling CQ and he makes a contact with somebody and like a couple of people have called him and he knows there are people waiting to make a contact with him. Instead of him calling CQ again, he'll call QRZ, which means who's calling me. It's like this. And then it's usually followed with a question mark. So. Okay, I butchered that. Let me do that again. Okay, so that's your cue basically to try to make a contact with them. You could basically substitute the CQ POTA with QRZ and you would do the same exact thing. Okay, I'll get into that later. Also, there's a couple of others that you might hear. You might hear QRM and QSB. Okay, those are both to communicate difficulties that you're having with making a contact. So QSB is signal fading. That's when you'll hear a signal get stronger and then it'll fade out, it'll get weaker, and it'll get stronger again, and it gets weaker again, kind of like in a sine wave. All right, that is QSB. A lot of times you'll get your signal report back followed by QSB, or you might want to send that to the activator to let them know that your signal or their signal is fading in and out. So sometimes when the QSB is really deep and it's really rough, what'll happen is the signal will go from really strong. He sounds perfectly, the activator sounds perfectly clear. You can understand everything they're sending. And all of a sudden, in that sort of that valley of weakness, they'll fade out completely and you won't hear anything except background noise. Okay. So that's an instance when you would send QSB. You would say, your signal is whatever, and then you'd follow it up with QSB, or they might send it to you. Okay. So QSB and QRM. Now QRM means, essentially man-made noise. In reality, what that is like if another station is parked close to the frequency of the activator and they are transmitting and they're really strong, they may bleed over to your frequency, the activator's frequency, and may make it difficult for you to hear what the activator is trying to send. It's kind of like being at a party and somebody's next to you having a really loud conversation and you can't hear the person you're talking to. It's the radio equivalent of that. Okay, so that's what QRM is. And one last one that you hear occasionally, and if you're not prepared for it, you kind of get thrown for a loop. It's QSL. It basically means that I understood what you said. Okay, occasionally folks will use that. But again, if you're not prepared for it, you're like, what was that? So try to memorize that. Okay, most activators are going to be running between 18 and 22 words a minute. If they can slow down for you because you can't go that fast, they will. But I would expect to be copying around like 20-ish words a minute. Some radios are difficult to adjust the keyer speed on the fly. I have a radio like that. And if the activator is using a radio like that, they might not be able to slow down. So in that case, what you'll hear is the activator will basically spread out his letters with exaggerated spacing between them. It's called Farnsworth, and it's to make it easier for you to copy. You're giving your brain a break in between the letters to try to decode what's being said, okay? What you're going to want to do now is find the station that you want to work on the spots page. Make sure that you're tuned up and ready to go. And please, by the way, make sure that you've tuned up on a clear frequency, not a frequency that's in use, okay? So when you tune to a frequency on the spots page, you should not do anything. You should just listen, at least for, like 30 seconds. Because, well, I'll explain why. There's a couple of things that can happen. One, you might not hear anything at all, okay? And that can happen if the activator is too far or too close to you. If he's too close, you could be in a skip zone where the RF is not propagating to where you are. Or if he's too far away, the same sort of thing can happen, okay? So you sit there, you wait, and you listen. And if you don't hear anything at all, the activator could have packed up and left, or he's just, the activator, he or she is just too far or too close for you to hear. That may vary with bands. So if somebody's closer to you, and let's say they're on 20 meters, and you can't hear them, and then later on they switch to 40 meters, you might have a shot of hearing them, okay? Because 40 meters will propagate at a shorter distance than 20 will. So you can, if you see the spots page, the frequency in the spots page for the same person changed to 40 meters, you might want to go back to that frequency and give a listen. Sometimes you'll turn to the frequency and you'll hear the POTA station calling CQ. And I'll cover what to do next if you hear that. That's the ideal situation. But a lot of the time, what's going to happen is you're going to tune to a frequency and you're going to hear an ongoing QSO, okay? And if you hear an ongoing QSO, you have to work out which side of the QSO you're hearing, okay? It could be the activator, it could be the hunter, it could be both. But a lot of the times, you're only going to be able to hear one of the two stations in the QSO. Okay, because one of the stations will be where the RF is propagating to you and the other might be in a skip zone and you won't be able to hear them. So it'll be like listening to one side of a phone conversation or something like that. That's what it'll be like, okay? The easiest thing to do if you hear that happening is to just wait, sit there, wait and listen, and wait for the QSO to wrap up. Once the QSO wraps up, the activator is going to start calling CQ again. So if the QSO wraps up and then you hear CQ POTA, DE, whatever, then okay, you're hearing the activator. But a lot of the times you'll hear the QSO wrap up and then you won't hear anything anymore. And what you're hearing was a hunter hunting that activator. Okay, and you could only the hunter was in an area where you could hear where the ARF is propagating to you. So if that's the case, you're not going to hear the activator. It's the same as situation one, where you tune to frequency, you just don't hear anything at all. That's basically the same situation. You're just going to have to tune to another frequency and see if you can find another activator. Okay. Okay, so now let's say that you've tuned to the frequency and you hear the activator calling CQ. It's going to sound something like CQ POTA. They might send CQ once or twice, or maybe even 3 times, and then POTA, DE, and then their call sign, maybe once or twice, and possibly the letter K. Okay, so I'll break that down for you. CQ means that they're looking to make a contact with anyone. POTA or POTA means they're just looking to make a parks on the air contact. DE means from or this is, and then there's going to be the activator's call sign, like I said, maybe once or twice, and maybe followed by a K. Traditionally, when you were sending a CQ message, you would end by sending a K to basically signal that I'm turning it over to anyone who's listening. It's your turn to go. A lot of POTA activators don't send the K because they're afraid that K is going to you're going to confuse that K with being a letter K in their call sign. So either they'll add an exaggerated space between their call sign and the K, or they won't send the K at all. They'll just send their call sign maybe once or twice, and then they'll just sit there and listen for somebody to come back to them. Okay? So what you should do is copy that call sign down on paper if you have to, or if you can memorize whatever they just sent, but compare that to what you saw on the spots page. On rare occasions, there's an incorrect spot with like a wrong character or something like that. So you're going to want to verify what you're hearing against what you see on the spots page, because while most of the time it's correct, it's not always. Okay? When you hear the end of the CQ message, then that's your cue to make the contact. At that point, you should send your call sign once and listen. Only send it once. If the activator hears you, then they'll respond with your call sign. But they may only hear part of your call sign for a variety of reasons, or they may not hear you at all, right, for a variety of reasons. For instance, let's say my call sign is N2DI. If I send N2DI and the activator only hears a piece of it, he's going to come back with the letters that he heard, the letters and numbers, and a question mark. So if I send, and I hear the activator come back with, that means that he only heard the N and the 2, and he didn't hear anything after that. So at that point, if you get something like that, maybe it's just the N, maybe it's the 2, maybe it's the N2D or something like that, whatever the piece is, send your entire call sign. And you could probably send it more than once. You could send it once or twice, or maybe even 3 times if conditions are really bad. But usually once or twice is enough, okay? If the POTA station can then make you out, then they'll come back with your full call sign. And then you're basically, the QSO will begin at that point. Okay, they're saying, N2DI, whatever your call sign is, I hear you, and they're going to respond to you. Now, it's very important to understand that when you're calling them, there might be other hunters out there listening and calling at the same time. So if the activator comes back with a piece of a call sign or a call sign that's not you, you obviously don't want to respond, right? Because he's talking to somebody else. He heard somebody else. Just wait and let the activator work that station, and when they're done, then you could try again. Also, a lot more often than you would believe happens is that your call sign is similar to somebody else's. So let's say there's another N2 calling along with me. I send N2DI. They come back with N2. I send my call sign again, and then they come back with N2 Charlie or N2Z or something like that, right? They're obviously not talking to me, so I should stop sending at that point, because the activator is hearing another N2 that's stronger or whatever he can make out better, and he's working them first. So if that's the case, back off. Don't send anything, right? He's talking to somebody else. Just wait your turn, and then you can go again. Now, also what could possibly happen, and this happens, is that you'll send N2DI. He'll get N2 and send question mark. And then you send it again, and he may come back with something like he mistaked the D for another character. So he'll send, let's say, N2Z question mark. So I'm going to stop because I'm not N2Z, I'm N2DI, right? He's going to send N2Z question mark. I'm obviously not going to respond. If there was nobody else calling in and what he was hearing was me, but he mistaked the D for a Z, he's going to send N2Z question mark, N2Z question mark. And since I'm not responding, he's going to go, okay, wait, maybe I screwed up. Maybe it's not a Z. So he'll go back to sending N2 question mark, N2 question mark. And he may back up one character at a time until he gets a response again. Okay, so that does happen. So just be aware of that. But the important thing to remember is only respond when the activator is talking to you, okay? Okay, so now let's say that you turn to the frequency, you heard the activator calling CQ, you sent your call sign, he got it, and he's coming back to you. Great, now you're in a QSO, okay? So this is what you've been trying to do. So the activator is going to come back with your call sign, and he may say something like, thank you. He's probably going to say something like GM, GA, or GE, okay? And remember, these are going to be the shortened versions of this, right? So if the activator says thank you, it's going to be TU. If they say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, according to whatever time of day it is, it's going to be or, okay? And they may even come back after that with your name, if they know who you are. You've worked them before. The next, you're going to hear your signal report, and it's going to be prefixed with UR, okay? Meaning you are, and then your signal report. Now, your signal report is going to be 3 digits. The first digit is, well, basically it's a subjective scale from 1 to 5, meaning how easy it is for them to, your readability, how easy it is for them to make out what you're sending. 5 being the best, 1 meaning I can't hear you at all. Okay, and you rarely hear a 1 because if they can't hear you at all, they're not going to send your, you're a 1, whatever. So usually it'll be something between 2 and 5. Okay. If it's a lower number, take that into consideration. That means he's having a harder time hearing you, right? The activator is having a hard time hearing you. So if it's like a 2 or a 3, you might want to repeat some critical information again, okay? Now, the second digit is going to be your signal strength, and that's a number from 1 to 9. And usually the activator is looking at their S meter, and whatever your signal report is, whatever your signal is on their S meter, they're going to send back to you, generally. Some radios don't have an S meter, so they're going to use their ears and kind of estimate. It's not super critical information, but again, they're trying to communicate how strong you're sounding and how easy it is to make you out, okay? Again, if it's a low number, they're struggling a little bit, so help them out and send things a couple times. Or they may say again or send question marks, so be patient and resend information if they're having a hard time hearing it, okay? The last digit is the tone. It's a number from 1 to 9, 9 being perfect. Now, this used to be relevant back in the day with older radios because, a radio's tone may have not sounded right for a variety of reasons. And that last digit was a way for you to signal to the other person that, hey, your tone is screwed up, right? And each number meant something different, like how the tone was sounding. But with modern radios, the tone is always perfect. So you're always going to hear a 9. I've never heard anything other than a 9 in that last digit, okay? The other thing to realize, too, is that 9s take a long time to send in CW. Okay, since they take such a long time to send, in CW they use things called cut numbers, which is basically a letter that represents a number. Really the only one that you need for POTA and the only one that you're going to hear most frequently, or at least hear at all, is the N. N meaning 9, okay? So N is substituted for 9. So a lot of times, if your signal report is 599, instead of sending, they'll send, you see how much faster that is, okay? And if your signal report, let's say, is 579, they may substitute the last 9 with an N. So, okay, so if you get the letter N in your signal report, it's a 9. Okay, that's all you need to know. Okay, then following your signal report, you may get the state abbreviation for the activator. So if the activator is in Alabama, they'll send AL. If they're in New York, they'll send NY. A lot of the times they won't send their state. They'll just send BK. So it'll just be, your call sign, good morning, your 599, and then BK, which means that they're turning it back over to you, okay? So then that's your your opportunity to jump back in and respond. So now when you go to respond, you're going to want to first send BK to signaling that you're taking over the conversation. Okay? And then you're going to want to let the activator know that you basically copied what they said. You understood what they said. So you would send RR, which stands for Roger, Roger, just to let them know that you copied what they sent. Okay? Then the basic information that you're going to want to get across is their signal report and your state. So the entire QSO, your end of it, could be as brief as okay, now I just used my state there and just a fictitious signal report of 599. But that could be your whole response to them. Most hunters and activators will exchange some sort of pleasantry along the way. Right, it's usually not all business. I mean, some activators are all business, but a lot of times it'll be, thank you and good morning, and then the activator's name if you know them, your signal report twice, just in case, if they had a hard time hearing it. Like if you got a weak signal report, you'll send your signal report twice, and then my state twice if they're having a hard time hearing me, and then good luck in 73, meaning 73 is best regards, or 72. Which essentially means the same thing, but just signaling to them that you're running low power, like 5 watts or less. You don't have to do that in the beginning because you're probably going to be sweating bullets the whole time, and you're not going to be comfortable with sending stuff. You should practice your side of a QSO. Turn your radio to practice mode and just practice sending a response. Practice sending signal reports. Practice sending good morning, good afternoon, thank you, good luck, 73, stuff like that. And you'll get comfortable, and all of a sudden you'll start to throw that in, and you're going to start to sound really cool, like you know what you're doing, like all of us are. And before you know it, you're going to be having like these really nice, pleasant, POTA QSOs with folks. Okay, so in the beginning, don't stress too much. Send the basic information. And as you get better, you can add things to it. Now, after you send your information, you said, Roger, you send the signal report, you send your state, turn it back over to them. The activator is going to come back to you with like the final round of the last bit of the conversation, right? The last bit of the QSO. They're going to send something like BK because they're taking over. Roger, Roger, thank you for your state. Usually they'll say to you and then your state, just to acknowledge that they understood what state you're sending. And then like 73, and maybe they'll send DE and their call sign again to let other folks who are waiting to make a contact know, who's the activator. When that's all done, they'll send 2 dits. And that's like saying goodbye, okay? And you would respond with 2 dits. Just like that. That's it. That's equivalent to like when you say goodbye on the phone, right? You're having a phone conversation with somebody, you say goodbye, they say goodbye, and that's it, you hang up. And then you say, and then that's it, the QSO's over, okay? In case you're curious, what's the 2 dits? That's actually a leftover from back in the day when CW ops would sign off with shave and a haircut 2 bits, believe it or not. So one guy would go, one operator would go, and the other person would go, and that would be it. So now all that remains is the 2 bits. Okay? But that's it. You just made your first POTA QSO. It was that quick. It's probably like 50 seconds long or something like that. And I guarantee you, you're going to be sweating bullets the entire time. Okay, now let's talk about some things that can go wrong, because things will go wrong and you have to kind of roll with it. Don't freak out. But some of the things that you could expect are, one of you or both of you are experiencing QSB. Okay, it's probably both of you are experiencing it. Again, that's when their signal and your signal is getting stronger, and then it's fading. It's getting stronger and it's fading. A lot of times it will fade to the point where you just can't hear anything anymore. They call that deep QSB. Okay. A lot of times you might be sending to the activator and they won't get anything you said. So they'll send again, question mark. You have to recognize that. If you hear again, or if you hear just a question mark, send everything that you just sent all over again from the beginning, because they probably didn't get any of it. Okay. If they ask specifically for a piece of information, like if they didn't get the signal report, they're going to say RST question mark. Meaning they didn't hear the signal report part of it. If that's the case, then you could send your signal report and BK to turn it back over to them. If they didn't get your state, they'll send QTH. Okay? But most of the time, it's not really important that they get your state or the signal report because it doesn't matter for a valid QSO. So most of the time, they'll just keep chugging along like they got everything, and it'll be fine. It's fine if that happens. But when you're experiencing QSB, pro tip, when they sound stronger to you, you will sound stronger to them. Okay? So if you can time your response for when, the signal is booming, you're going to be booming back to them. And when things are fading out, recognize the fact that you're going to be fading out too. Okay? Also, you could let the activator know that you're experiencing QSB by when you send your signal report, you could follow that with QSB and then everything else that you would normally send. They may do that to you too, just to let you know, hey, you're fading out. Okay? So just be patient. If they ask to resend information, resend it. It's not the end of the world. Also, what could happen is that they could completely fade out for you and you're not going to know when to respond to them because you hear nothing. Okay? If that's the case, a experienced activator, and for that fact, experienced hunters too, will do the same thing. If they get no response, they'll wait a little bit and then they'll resend their entire message all over again because they're assuming that, hey, there's QSB and that person didn't hear anything I just sent. You don't get a response because everything is just faded out. Sit there and wait. You might hear the activator come back and send it all over again. If they don't, you can hear the activator, send again, ? Now also, one or both of you may be experiencing QRM, which is, like I said, a station parked close to your frequency and they're loud and they're making it really hard for you to hear things. You can let the activator know that you're experiencing QRM with sending him QRM after the signal report. They might do the same for you. But it's really hard to combat QRM. You can try to tighten up your filter. There's a couple of things that you could try to do, but it's really hard to combat. So what'll happen is the activator will probably get frustrated from not being able to hear anything, and they'll just tune to another frequency, like they'll move further away from the noise, and they'll just start calling CQ again. Okay? So if you're in the middle of a QSO with them and you're experiencing QRM, you just kind of got to bear it, grin and bear it and work through it. Try to send when, the QRM is quiet, right? The other station is pausing or something like that, if you can. But it's hard. You just got to kind of, work through it. There's really nothing else you can do. Okay, also what could happen is the activator may copy your call sign wrong. So they call CQ POTA, DE, their call sign, blah, blah, blah. You send your call sign. They come back with an entire call sign, and it's really close to yours, but it's not yours. Like they're off by a letter or something like that. That can happen. In fact, I have a video of me making a POTA contact with somebody, and I sent N2DI, and they came back with N2NI. So if just one letter is wrong, and you're confident that it's not somebody else that they're talking to, don't panic. Basically, all you have to do is when it's your turn, after the BK, Roger, Roger, just send DE, and then your call sign again. And then the rest of the response that you would normally send, your 599, your state, 73, whatever you want to send, right? But just squeeze in DE and your call sign again, either at the beginning, like right after the Roger, Roger, or you could put it right before the last BK. So you could say, Roger, Roger, your 599, New Jersey, DE, N2DI, or whatever your call sign is, BK. And when the activator hears DE in the middle of that exchange, they're going to go, wait a minute, I think I copied something wrong. And they're immediately going to look at the call sign that they wrote down, and they're going to compare it against what you're sending. And they're going to most likely catch the error. And then on their next go around, when they come back to you, they're going to say Roger, Roger. And then they're going to, 99% of the time, specifically say Roger, Roger, N2DI. They're going to come back with your corrected call sign, whatever it is, in their response. And then, say 73 and whatever, all of that. But they'll come back and recognize the fact that they messed up your call sign, and they'll resend you the call sign again. Okay, folks, so that's it. I mean, it's that simple to make a POTA QSO, especially, now that you kind of know what to expect, you're not going to freak out. Well, to be honest, you're going to freak out anyway, even though you know what to expect. It's, I don't know, it'll take a while, and your nerves will calm down, and you'll get used to sending, and you'll get used to copying, and it'll just flow, and it'll just become even funner than it is now. Even though you're stressing in the beginning, it will become funner, believe it or not. And, there's one thing that I really want to stress. In the beginning, I and a lot of other people We're so freaked out about what happens if I send something wrong, right? If I send my call sign wrong, if I send the response wrong, I flub, right? I send the wrong letters or whatever, because you're learning. Everybody does this. Experienced CW operators have mistakes all the time. Nobody cares if you make a mistake. Nobody goes, oh, that guy's a dummy. Nobody does that, right? It's just all you have to do is send a bunch of dits spaced out like in a weird spacing. So if I sent my call sign and I screwed up, I would go, oops, wait, I just screwed up. I would go, just send a bunch of dits spaced out like that. And that lets them know, that's basically like typing backspace on the keyboard. It's like, hey, wait, I just screwed up the last thing I just said. And resend whatever you screwed up. And that's it. Believe me, nobody cares, right? All they want to do is copy what you're trying to say. And if you make a mistake, they're going to be like, oh, wait, the guy made a mistake. He's going to resend, right? I'm sorry, guy, girl, whoever. Made a mistake, they're going to resend. You know, just don't freak out about it. Nobody cares. They just want to get what you're trying to send, okay? So if I could get that, if that's the one message that you get from this, remember, nobody cares if you mess up. Just send a couple of dits and send it again, whatever that you messed up, and you can keep going. Okay, folks? So that's it. I'm wrapping it up. This video has probably gone too long. If there's any questions, ask them in the comments below. I will do my best to respond to everybody, okay? Don't freak out. Try it. It's a great way to learn, okay? I encourage you all to try it. All right. Have a good day, 73, everyone, and take care. Bye-bye.